When news flashed that a man had shot and killed a Canadian soldier in front of the War Memorial in Canada, what most people were wondering, but not saying out loud, was, is it another radical Muslim? And it was, as was the man who ran over 2 Canadian soldiers in Quebec, Martin Rouleau-Couture, as was Zale Thompson, who attacked 4 police officers in Queens, New York, also this week.
I said it out loud. I wasn't wondering silently. Welcome to Gimme 5. Fareed Zakaria. Interesting here because he's going to kind of scold us for coming to expect that Muslims would do this kind of thing, and then at the end basically say that there is a prejudice against Muslims. So he wants it both ways, but it was an interesting segment in his show on CNN last weekend, so I thought I'd bring part of it to you. Let's continue.
It's why I've said before, we have to be honest. There is a problem in the world of Islam today. Some people have found in it an ideology of opposition and violence against the modern and Western world. The 3 jihadis who burst onto the news this week represent that ugly phenomenon. But let's dig deeper into these 3 people to understand what moved them to become terrorists. None of them was born and brought up a religious Muslim. A profile of Michael Zehaf Bibo in the New York Times shows someone who went from a life of partying as a 16-year-old to repeated arrests for drug possession and stealing a credit card. He was once sentenced to prison for 2 years for possessing a weapon.
All right. So what? So what? I don't care where they were radicalized. I don't care how they were radicalized. And if I did, I'd be a bigot because I would say monitor the mosque. And I urge you, if you're so concerned, and if there's such a pattern here, Fareed, of people who are criminals going to prison and becoming radicalized, let's look at the imams in the prisons, because that is a huge problem. But shh, let's not talk about that. Let's just say that these people who take up jihad as quote-unquote lone wolves, they're sick, they're crazy, they commit crimes anyway. So radical Islam really doesn't have much to do with it. Baloney. Watch.
In the Times article, one of the counselors at a Salvation Army shelter described his battles with addiction thus: he was doing heroin to take the edge off crack. Amidst this turmoil, the Times says, he converted to Islam, got radicalized, sought to go to Syria to fight in the jihad, and finally ended up trying to wage his own version of it in Ottawa and died after killing a soldier.
All right, so what? He's a radicalized Islamic Muslim. I don't care how it happened. Next.
The man who ran over the soldiers in Canada earlier this week reportedly converted to Islam even more recently, only a year ago. The NYPD says the man who attacked its officers with a hatchet, also clearly disturbed, converted to Islam 2 years ago. These are not people steeped in Islam, people for whom the religion shaped their worldview over decades, people who were motivated by their immersion in the religion. On the contrary, these were unstable young men prone toward radicalism and violence. They were searching for an ideology that would fit their disturbed worldview, and in the radical and jihadi interpretations of Islam, they found it.
Right. That's the point. So who cares about what comes before the point? More.
It's always worth remembering that these people represent a tiny minority. Think of it this way. Terror groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda have been calling on Muslims to engage in terrorism in Western cities for over 10 years now. Of 1.6 billion Muslims worldwide, the number who have responded to these calls is a small percentage. If all Muslims were radicals, we would have more than 3 to worry about this week. And yet, there is a problem within Islam. It's not enough for Muslims to point out that these people do not represent the religion. They don't. But Muslims need to take more active measures to protest these heinous acts.
All right. Well, I'll applaud him there. He went on to say that there is an anti-Muslim bigotry out there, which I'm sure there is. Like there's anti-white bigotry, anti-black bigotry, but I don't think it's systemic in any way, shape, or form. Not in this country, certainly. On the Steve Malzberg Show.